All right, here we go. Single point of failure. But before I get started, let me ask you one question. And that question is, what would happen to your business if you disappeared for 30 days? Think about that. Would everything continue to go on normally, or would things slowly but surely start to fall apart? That's what we're going to talk about today. And there's something called the founder's fuse. We're going to discuss that. I'm going to show you how that's going to impact your business. I'm going to give you 4 examples of where your business could actually collapse if you don't pay attention to these 4 things. So I hope you're ready for Iconic TV. We are live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. or somewhere around there. And today we are definitely talking about this, the single point of failure. What's happening in your business that could actually break the whole business structure and the business system. And if you haven't heard the term before, we'll dive into that so you understand exactly what it means, because it's very powerful when you're really thinking of running your business, because chances are you got started in your business being the sole founder, starting off small, adding people as you went along, and now you've built a great team and you're in the millions, approaching the millions, 10 millions, but you're not growing as fast as you could. And people don't always see that until after you get there, right? When you can look back at something and go, oh, I see what I could have done differently if I had only known. And this is what this show is about today. How do you actually see with foresight what you can't see right now? And that's by understanding this concept of a single point of failure. And it is really that specific, right? We talk here a lot about singularity. And so this is really sort of the pinnacle aspect of that. And so that's the 30-day question. What would happen to your business if you weren't around for 30 days? I tested this in my own businesses, and in one business, I was able to test it. It broke. I tested, it broke. I tested, it broke. But after a while, we built in enough systems that I could actually leave my business for 4 to 6 months, a year, and everything worked flawlessly. So that is my aim for you today, is how do you build a business like that where you can step away without checking in, without constantly being on your phone, without sneaking off or bringing your laptop on vacation. What is the single point of failure? And chances are it points right back to the owner. So a lot of people don't realize that they are the single point, and they try to build different redundancies around them, but actually they're just not seeing where the error lies. So I want to point these things out to you today. And if you want to find your own single point of failure, this is what you can do. So we have something that we do. It's called TIPS, right? It's the Iconic Profit software, and it does an analysis of your business. It's like going into an MRI machine for your business, and then we can see all the hidden spots and places that are weak, that are strong, that are breaking, and you don't even know that it's about to happen. And then you can see the connections between different aspects of your business, so you know what to fix, in what order, what to let go, and what to start implementing right away. So this is TIPS, and you can go straight to our website, the iconicbusinessadvisors.com/tips, and you can see it there, and you can see what TIPS is, what it looks like, how this diagnostic works for you, and then you can easily just click on the QR code or go there and book a call, and we can set an appointment to do a forensic diagnostic on your business and figure out where are the single points of failure that you're experiencing in your business, because every business has it. And here's the thing. It often starts with like a fuse. Let me tell you a story. What happened when we moved in this house here that I'm in now. Fireplace, it's electric, so you got to have the ambiance, the football, the snacks, and someone goes to warm up some cider, and the microwave. Oh my gosh. And that's when it happened, right? That's when we found out the fuse, right? Once somebody put on the microwave, within 5 seconds, everything in the house went dark. Why? Because we found out that whoever built the house wired everything wrong. And they put all the kitchen appliances and all the living room appliances and outlets into one fuse. And we had never really had everything running at the same time until that day. And that's what we found out. It blew out everything. So you couldn't ever really have a great dining experience in my house. Or in the summer, you turn on the air conditioner, same thing. So it all needed to be rewired. And I tell you this because think about your business. Where are you having all of these sources come into one point, which is you, the founder, and you're the clearinghouse for everything. Everything has to go through you before it can work. And so what we didn't have was a power problem or anything like that. We had a fuse problem. How was everything fused? How was it wired together? And so this is what we are talking about today, and how you can look at this whole concept of a single point of failure. And there's two halves that we're going to talk about, which is the diagnosis. Where do we identify the hidden fuses, right? Taking that 30-day litmus test, the founder fuse that we're talking about. I'm going to show you a $440 million problem that somebody had. And then we're going to show you the distinction of what you need to look for before you try and replace these fuses. And then how do you build out a level and actually an architecture around this? Because a lot of people think, oh, I'll just go switch this, or I'll add more people, or I'll do an SOP, or I'll create a new org chart. That is not really just it. All right. So I'm going to show you the right way to do it rather than just patching something. And that's the key that you have to look out for. If you want this, by the way, I'm happy to get you this cheat sheet, and it has all the points that we're going to talk about today. And if you subscribe to our newsletter, the IconicEdge.com, you can get a copy of this there. That will come out on Friday. So every Friday, our newsletter comes out, and so it is free. Go ahead and subscribe. And then every Tuesday would come here live for IconicTV. So you have the tips and the principles that actually will grow your business. And so now you see the whole architecture of what we're talking about. A lot of people then come to me and say, well, I don't have to worry about that. I built a team, so I am not the bottleneck anymore. It's like, oh, there's pride, right? That's something that is sometimes a false narrative. And sometimes just having the team isn't enough, because you might build a team, but then what happens? It can happen that on Friday, in fact, I was just talking with a client about this the other day. Somebody will call in sick, and you might have somebody injured on the job. You could have somebody on vacation, and just all happens right when you were trying to go on vacation, right? All these things converge all at once. Again, there goes the fuse. So even though you have a team that doesn't actually cure that redundancy problem that a lot of people see. So there can be a series of sudden situations that come up out of your hands, like when you have this founder's fuse going on in your business. And so what do people do? As they have the idea right now, which is what everybody does, is figure out, how do I fix the founder's fuse? One of the best ways I could do it is to add AI into the business. And this is something that a lot of people think about and discuss. How can I do this? And they think, well, I'll just add on agents, and I'll add on systems, and I'll, put a chat bot here and a widget there. And then they get caught in what is called the generalist trap. And what happens is they're like, I don't want to go all in. I see scary stories about companies who go all in on AI and they lose tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not there yet. Let me just dip my toe in the water, and I'll just add a chatbot here, or add this, or add an agent. And then they're looking for it as, where's the cheapest thing I can do and try it? Hey, if it doesn't work, it's only discretionary income. It's not such a big deal. But it is a big deal, because then you sit it there and like, that worked or it didn't work. Then you try something else, you try something else. Soon you have this collection, and you might have forgotten about the thing you tried back in 2023 when all this came out. And here we are in 2026. And you're trying to build all this, but you might have old systems, new agent who does lead gen, an agent who does operations, and you have one agent for everything. They have a single sole point of focus. And then you have one orchestrator who's like the overseer of it all, right? Just like in an orchestra, you have the conductor, and then you have the cellists and the violas and the harps. All are in their own station. They don't play multiple industries. You don't want your agents to be going around playing musical chairs, because that's what causes the chaos. And then you see this crazy spin up of these businesses, and nobody knows what they're doing other than they're spending way too much for the results they're trying to get. So it's one break that can cause a total failure, like the game Jenga, right? And you try to build with these blocks, you try to go as high as possible and scale. But if you try and take the founder out, the whole thing collapses. Okay. So if you are that pivot, do all of that for me, or somebody built one agent, that is not going to help you, because what really is the solution is many single agents, one system, right? Whatever the role is that you need, then you have an orchestration layer who coordinates, optimizes, and routes everything. And then the checks and balances and the quality control, the audit trails, all the continuous improvement by watching the system, seeing, oh, this is a pattern, this is a new pattern, this is a breakpoint. There has to be intelligence that watches the whole system work together, and then clear accountability. So there's fewer outcomes, better, you'll have better outcomes, and I'd be very grateful. So go to IconicTV Live every Tuesday. That's where you can find us. And I was talking about when I ran a racing company, and where the biggest change that implements the outcome is in the pit stop, right? And so if you go into a pit stop and imagine, you've seen the races, right? F1, and the cars come in, they do a tire change, and they have somebody, a team, actually not even just one person, actually a team on each tire, right? Somebody's loosening the lug nuts, taking the tire off, someone's putting it on, someone's putting the nuts back on. Right? So everyone has one role. You got 4 people with a role on each tire. Now, if you had to have only one person, like a founder or the driver, had to get out of the car and go around and do all of those actions on each tire and go all the way around the car, you can imagine you lost the race. There's no way you can do that. And then hop back into the car. Not going to happen. Okay. This is the problem that most people are doing. This is how most people are running their business. They are being the driver and the mechanic and the crew chief and the spotters. You cannot run a multi-million-dollar business that way. So let me tell you a story. It's a real story, 2012. And this is a company called Knight Capital. And if you've ever traded on the stock market, this will be interesting to you. So Knight Capital was one of the largest trading firms on Wall Street at the time. And at that time, on August 1st, not like how many years ago is that? I don't know. But, this month, a number of years ago, Wall Street had come out with a new program, and the more people that did the trades and had success with it were going to reap multiple benefits from it financially. So Knight built out their whole program. And so at 8:01 pre-market, right, they have this thing launching, ready to go. The bell rings at 9:30. If you've ever been to Wall Street or you've been on that, it's really an exciting thing. So they launch this thing and the world collapses. Everything goes wrong. Let me tell you what happened. And they had this program, but they didn't realize when they built out this program, they forgot about something that they built back in 2003. And it was a, the power peg? I call it the powder keg because it blew up everything. This is the thing that basically stopped Wall Street for a period of time. And look at the things that happened with this company. In 45 minutes, The market opened at 9:30, and their system started sending out orders into the market. It's crazy, like buy, sell orders, right? What happened? 4 million trades across 154 different stocks. 397 million shares were traded, $3.5 billion in unwanted long positions. People didn't do this. It was a computer doing these wild rogue trades. 3.15 billion in unwanted short positions. And what happened? The computer was basically trading against itself like a ping pong match. It's like, oh, there's a buy, oh, there's a sell. It was trading against itself and changing the market dramatically. And they were scrambling. They're finally realizing, oh my God, something's happening with the system. And they had suffered a huge loss. And they suffered a loss of $440 million in 45 minutes, $10 million a minute. Could you imagine? Maybe you want to build a $10 million company and it might take you 10, 15 years. They lost that in 1 minute over and over and over again. They scrambled to try and figure everything out. They couldn't figure it out. And finally, they just tried to pull the cord. And what had happened is that this actually was a multiple times their annual earnings for the company. So I'll tell you what happened to the company in a second. But what happened was really interesting. They built out this software program for this big event on Wall Street, and they didn't realize that they forgot to remove an old piece. And it's sort of like you've heard stories like a medical doctor leaves a utensil in a body, or a mechanic leaves an old part somewhere in the engine and they forgot to take it out and everything blows up. This is what it was like for Knight Capital. And they had these 8 servers and they built everything out on the 7 servers and thought everything was great, but the 8th server they forgot about. They forgot there was this old program from 2003, 9 years earlier, that was running, but they forgot to disconnect it. And so it started having its own chaos, and it was creating all these false orders to buy and sell within itself, and nobody could stop it. So they thought, oh, we just have to pull the plug on these 7. They tried to stop those 7, but those 7 servers were good. It was the 8th one that they didn't even remember that was causing all the havoc, and now it made it worse. So now that only Lone Ranger server was doing all the crazy trading on Wall Street on its own, and the charts were going crazy. It was literally off the charts. And it was a massive loss. Think about that. 440 million was like 17 times what you make. And so that was a catastrophe. Can you imagine? Now, what if you were one of their clients? What if you were one of the people that was caught up in this? And like, I didn't buy that. I didn't sell that. How do you get it back? Well, the SEC decided it was their problem, and they had all the fines. They had all the responsibility on them. And why? It's just a little oversight, wasn't it? And if you look at kind of what happened to them, that's their stock. They were one of the key players. If you remember this, what is it, about 13 years ago? And it went dramatic. It's like off a cliff, instant download. You can instantly see the day this happened, and they could barely recover in a few weeks. I think it's about 4 months. Somebody had to buy them out because they were floundering. They had 1,400 people that were gone. And what happened? Why did this happen? And so here are some of the things that I'm telling you this horror story because this was a while ago. But you know what? The same situations are happening today. We see it all the time, whether people are coming to us and they're afraid to look at how to implement an agentic intelligent workforce into their business, or they've heard stories, or they had this experience. So what really went wrong for this company? Here's the big things. Their outdated code was in production. Like, they still had that thing sitting there. They had missing deployment safeguards. They had insufficient testing practices. This is when I see a lot. People are in such a hurry to launch something. They don't test enough. And they also don't test the edges. They test the perfect scenarios, but they don't test, well, what if something happened? How do we get around that? They had a broken alert system. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Non-existent risk controls, another big factor. Who's governing this? How do you take care of this? And missing emergency protocols. And one of the interesting things, people think, well, how could this happen? Is this possible? Or by now everything is fixed, right? This wouldn't happen in today's world. No, it would. And here's what's interesting is they had 98 emails that went out to the engineers to alert them before the 9:30 a.m. bell that there was something wrong, because they started the process at 8:01, right? And then trading begins at 9:30, and they had 98 emails, but nobody checked them. Imagine that, right? So these are things that a lot of people are just glossing over, because AI is kind of sexy, but there's a dark side. And if you don't understand the dark side when you're building it out or looking for somebody to build it out, or know how to vet somebody to build it out for you, then these can be a problem. So what's the result? $440 million gone. 45 minutes. One server was the problem. One single point of failure. Market loss, $8 billion in market capitalization. Imagine that. So what's the single point of failure that's going to break your business? Where does it come down to? What are you not aware of? This is what I was talking about. Go ahead and book a call with me. If you just have some questions, if you want to be pointed in the right direction, if you want an analysis on your business, we'll be happy to look at that, because here's the fallacy. Just to think you're safe because you built a team and you're not the bottleneck anymore isn't going to be enough. We'd love to do an analysis with you and do a tips analysis and look at, through our Iconic Profit software, exactly where these points of failure are that you might not even know. And it's not that anyone did anything wrong, right? It's just sort of the perfect storm. You have all these situations, and then there's this one straw that broke the camel's back. And that is what broke Wall Street that day. Here's another story of what happened. And this is interesting. I had a client in the recycling business doing very well, one of the top 3 in his industry. And he had a major supplier that he worked with all the time, really good business relationship and personal relationship for 10 years. He did not know the owner of that supply firm was going to sell. And it was pretty quick. They sold, and a new company came in and bought them. And because they had such a tight relationship, the guy really didn't raise his prices or anything on my client. And as soon as the new company came in and looked at the books and looked at the numbers, they raised their prices 27%. And like that, all the profits were dried up. It took away the profits of that entire business just because somebody else had a boardroom change. So if you have that kind of dependency, that single point of failure of maybe a supplier that changes suddenly, that is what could break your business. And it can happen that quick. I'll tell you, we had to really scramble to make sure that we could do it, and look at all of the places. That's where we use tips. Look at all of the places that we could fix to get back to the margin that he had. Another example is a company in the home services space, and there are 2 owners, and they wanted to be semi-absentee owners. You see this a lot in home services, where companies buy up other companies. It might be an HVAC buys a plumbing company, or a window company, or water company, or garage company, landscapers, right? And they bundle everything up together for a future rollout. Well, these 2 owners bought this home health company, and it was doing over $1 million, and they were very thrilled about it. And they had a great number 2. If you're going to buy a business, you always want to make sure who's number 2, who's going to take care of everything. She wasn't quite a number 2 though. She was like a number 3, because she was an office manager and everything rested on her. The calls, the appointments, the routing and the scheduling and hiring of all of the team. And then finally, after 4 years, she decides to take a 2-week cruise. The whole business came to a stop, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know their business well enough and what would happen. And so they literally told me, we're going to take 2 weeks off until she gets back from vacation. I'm like, you can't do that. We can keep running things. No, they literally stopped their business because they didn't know what to do in their own business. And when she came back, can you imagine the pile of stuff that was on her desk? And in that time, because they refused to do anything, I think they were more scared than anything else. They lost 30 accounts. Well, they lost their number one biggest account, but 30 accounts of monthly payments were delinquent. The people didn't pay because she always did these calls, which is insane in these days, right? She would call people to send a check. Ridiculous, right? To not have these systems in place. And so that was a single source of failure. So if you're thinking about buying businesses, that's another thing to consider. Like, what are the different places? So I gave you 4 examples, like I promised, right? I talked to you about the fuse, where everything is coming into one source, and then one little trigger will blow everything up. And we talked about the technical failure of night. We talked about being a single source of failure on maybe a supplier or vendor, and a single source of failure can be an employee that you just put everything on them. And sometimes it's out of ignorance, fear, or laziness. Or you think, well, I'm grooming them, I'm training them, but is it too much on that one point? So that's what I want you to think about today is, where is my future single source of failure? So I want you to take the test, take the true test. And the true test is this: can you walk away from your business for 30 days and come back with it producing more and nothing breaking? Those are 2 separate areas, right? If nothing breaks and you're doing more, and all the people are still there, hey, that's a good sign. So the true test is, can you do it? And will you pass? And if you don't pass, what happens? Usually the biggest thing that happens is that there is a structural flaw. So in a way, it's good. If you can walk away from your business like I did in stages until I could walk away from my business 4 to 6 months a year, you see where are the flaws, where are the break points. And those are the points where we can start integrating an AI workforce into your business. But 2 things that happen: people do it the wrong way. They look for generalists. They don't know what to do, and they don't know then with what to do, what order. Okay, that's another big thing, right? You can't put your socks on before your shoes. And there's a lot of people out there trying to tell you with AI to put your socks on after your shoes. Okay, so be careful of that. So you have to have the right architecture. You have to rewire the house in a way that everything can run its single function, right? The oven, the microwave, the fireplace, the air conditioning, the lights, everything can run at once, and nothing is dependent just on one source that could break your entire business. So I would love for you to schedule a tips call, and that will help you figure out, what is my next move? And if you find out that you're doing really great, all the power to you. But if you find out there's a couple hairline fractures in your business, now's the time to fix it before you become something like a Knight Capital who lost everything in their world. So it took a lot of years for them to build that company, and it just took minutes, less than an hour, for the whole company to fail. You can look up Knight Capital now, and you will see they're not around. You want your business to stay around, so book a call. Come to callconnie.com, 10 minutes to freedom, and we will help you get back on track. I will see you next Tuesday live right here on IconicTV, and we have something amazing. If you want to know how to build your business like Elon, we're going to talk about that next week. See you then.